So first of all, I want to take a second and thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules for this webinar. Over the years, we've had some very good feedback from it. In fact, Howard presents so much technical information that it's not uncommon for me to see the same names, over a duration of time watching this webinar multiple times in order to be able to pick up on some of the information that Howard gives us in greater detail. My name is Jason Spangler. I'm the flooring division manager here at Wagner Meters. I'm responsible for not only the Rapid RH and the concrete side of our business, but I'm also responsible for the line of wood hand meters that we have that we just launched called the Orion meters for wood, subfloor, and finished wood products. We are going to do a Q&A here, so if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to type them in. I'll try to get to as many of them as possible, and if for some reason I'm unable to get to all of them, I will definitely reply via email after the webinar. If for some reason you think of something down the road, it's one of the reasons why we're here, is to be able to help you with coming up with solutions to problems that you may have out there regarding moisture. My direct phone number is 800-634-9961, and I'm extension 235. So one of the questions that I get a lot revolves around, Howard talks about all of how relative humidity testing is a very depth-specific measurement. If you have a slab that's drying from one side, you should be drilling into a depth of 40% of what the overall thickness is, or a slab drying from two sides, you should be drilling to a 20% depth of the overall thickness. Of course, that means that you have to know what the thickness of the slab is. So a few things I always tell people is that, depending on what kind of structure you're dealing with, depending on what kind of end user or client you're dealing with, there's usually construction documents, no matter how new or old the building is. Obviously, new construction is going to be much easier because you have specifications that you're working off of. But even with renovations, I'll say that they do a lot of times where they're gonna put in either additional bathrooms, or they're gonna switch plumbing up and move it, over here as opposed to over here. So you're gonna have open trenches, and so being there and being able to see those kinds of things is definitely very critical. If you're talking about elevated slabs, a lot of times there's going to be perforations that come through, whether it's in a stairwell or perforations that come through as far as vent pipes or something like that through the decking or structural slab. A lot of times they're bigger than what the actual penetration is, and so there's times when you can see what the thickness is there. Usually I tell people that it ends up being something that, if you're not used to having to look to see how thick something is, or you're not used to asking those questions, you'd be surprised that once it becomes important to you, how many different tells there are on a job site, or how many different people there are that have the ability to give you that information. Now, that being said, doesn't mean that I haven't heard of people that don't go around and they'll drill a few different holes, smaller diameter, of course, not the 3/4 inch that you would do with a Rapid RH sensor. Drill through the slab. They'll usually take a piece of pliable wire, they'll make a J-hook out of it, a little bit bigger than what the actual diameter of the hole is, push it all the way through. Once it gets to the bottom, the J-hook springs out, you can pull up, there's resistance, mark it off with a Sharpie. When you pull it out, you can see the radius of where the J's at compared to where the Sharpie mark is, and you have a pretty good idea of how thick the slab is. Now, I'm not saying that they go around and they make the slab out of Swiss cheese by any stretch, but a few comparative, or a couple of comparative, situations like that definitely is not going to do anything to negatively impact a vapor retarder, even if it is one that's fully intact. Once you have that, then you have the ability to drill your holes appropriately. Another thing that I get a lot of questions about revolves around pan decking. And is pan decking drying from one side or two sides? And so the question, or the answer to that, is pan decking, even if it's classified vented pan decking, is only drying from one side. So you need to drill 40% of the thickness. So then the next question that comes out is, okay, which thickness are we talking about? Are we talking about the shallow depth, or are we talking about the thick depth? So the ASTM committee tried, or they thought they were going to be able to come up with some type of effective thickness calculation where you could take the thin and half of the deepest section and add them together and multiply them and do the stuff to come up with an effective thickness. Unfortunately, when they tried it, it definitely is going to be something that's going to take a lot more research and probably a lot more fine tuning. It's not going to be as easy, I think, as everybody thought. So at this point, the ASTM standard really is completely silent on how or where to place sensors in a corrugated pan deck. What we recommend is that you do your very best to identify the thick area of the slab, and then we want you to calculate based on that thickest area. So if you have 3.5 inches of coverage in the thin area, 5.5 inches in the deep area, we want you to identify where that deep area is at, and then calculate 40% of that 5.5 inches. So again, next question comes up: how do I figure out where the deep spot's at? They make a fairly inexpensive metal detector. And when I say fairly inexpensive, last time I checked, they were under $100. They work a lot like a stud finder on a wall. So it has a scan that's deep enough to pick up the shallow metal where you have the high section of that corrugation, but the signal's not so thick that it picks up the deep area. So you can scan across the surface, it'll pick up the high, mark that, move across, pick up the high, mark that, and you know in the center of that is where your deep area is at. Is it perfect? No. But the feedback I've gotten from the field is it works pretty well. The other option is to take, again, smaller diameter drill bit and try to identify, if you look down below and you can see which way the corrugation's running, you can start up on the floor, drill some smaller pilot holes to identify where you're at on the metal corrugation, get to the center of that, that's your deepest area, and then you can actually measure off that. Obviously, that's going to be more precise, but it's also going to take more time in doing that. So it doesn't look like I have any other questions. So with that, again, my name is Jason Spangler. Phone number is 800-634-9961, extension 235. And if there's any questions that you have down the road, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Thanks, and have a great day.